All right. Welcome. We are getting started here right on the dot, top of the hour. Thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Ashley Rumschlag. I am the National Director of domesticshelters.org, a program of Alliance for Hope International. I am joined by Rachel Myers, our Senior Digital Services Specialist, and Hannah Craig, our Director of Content. Rachel and Hannah will be working behind the scenes today to monitor the chat and the Q&A. Today's presentation will be 60 minutes and will feature expert insight on how to find meaningful human connection in a largely digital world. Just a couple of quick announcements before we get started. This year, we are committed to helping you find small but impactful ways to focus on self-care as part of our 2026 self-care webinar series. Next month, we'll focus on nutrition as a form of self-care. Carrie Ann Gwynn will focus on how what you eat can lay the foundation for wellness in your life and share practical tips that can help that you can start practicing today without overhauling your entire life. Save the date. It is Thursday, March 26th at 10 a.m. Pacific time and 1 p.m. Eastern. To be notified, please make sure that you are registered for the domesticshelters.org e-newsletter. Each week, we send articles and resources to help you better serve the survivors in your community. Rachel will drop a link in the chat so you can make sure that you're signed up. A huge thank you to Verizon for making this series possible. We're very proud to partner with Verizon as part of the Verizon Skill Forward initiative, which provides free online courses through the edX platform. To learn more, check out the link in the chat. One of the awesome perks of joining the Skill Forward program is that you can have access to one-on-one coaching with Carrie Ann. To learn more about this offering and to apply, please see the link in the chat. Just a reminder though, the deadline is this Friday to get your application in, so just a few more days left. The Purple Ribbon Awards are a national recognition program honoring individuals, teams, and organizations making a significant impact in the response to domestic violence. With categories spanning advocates, survivors, law enforcement, medical, legal, first responders, multidisciplinary teams, the awards reflect a coordinated cross-sector work required to end violence. Nominations are now being accepted through February 27th at purpleribonawards.org, and winners will receive national recognition and will be eligible for grants totaling $30,000. Just a reminder that domesticshelters.org is a program of Alliance for Hope International. Our goal at the Alliance is to create communities of safety, hope, and healing. To learn more about our various programs, please visit allianceforhope.org. And there are tons of resources on allianceforhope.org for you to utilize in your work to support survivors. All right, and then just a couple reminders. Like I said in the intro, this is a webinar, so your video is turned off. We will have live closed captions available. You just have to turn those on if you would like. And we'll also create a transcript of today's presentation and send that to you within a week. Please use the Q&A box for your questions. And also the chat can be used just to kind of communicate with other attendees or react to anything that the presenter is saying. But if you have a question, make sure that goes into the Q&A box so we can make sure we grab that. And again, we'll send you a certificate, transcript, a recording of today's webinar, and additional resources, all of that within 1 week of today's presentation. So with that, let's welcome our presenters. We are so excited to be joined today by Carrie Ann Gwynn, the Verizon Skill Forward Project Coordinator at Alliance for Hope International, and JoAnne Baldwin, Senior Manager of Lifecycle Customer Marketing at Bitly. Welcome, the two of you. So great to see you, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you
I wish
so
I could
much,
be in the same
Ashley.
space as you. I'm so jealous. You get to sit next to each other.
I know. I know. Thank you so much, Ashley, and thank you to everyone who's joining us on the webinar. This is JoAnne Baldwin. I'm Carrie Ann Gwynn, and we're thrilled to get to sit in the same room.
It is pretty fun.
Like, when do you ever get to do this on a webinar, right? Most of the time, it's just you're looking at a screen and wishing you could be with someone. So it felt, of course, fitting for the lost art of connection. We live in the same city. We better be in the same place. So I'm so glad we get to have this chat.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It was a commute. Took me 10 minutes to come down the hill. But it would be so easy for me to just say, hey, I want to sit and I'll just zoom in. And we've already exchanged so many different stories just sitting here in the last 10, 15 minutes, which I'm really thankful for.
Yeah,
so,
I love
thank
that
you for
so
having
much.
me.
Well, part of why we're doing this is that we're doing a 12, well, it was going to be 12. It's going to be a webinar series on self-care. And so we're not just talking like bubble baths and getting your nails done, because that can only take you so far, right? When it comes to self-care. But when we're looking at being a human, what does that mean to be a human? Like, it's so complicated. And we need so much that our current society is oftentimes not providing. And so if y'all were here, actually, will you say I was here in the chat if you joined us for the tech addiction webinar? Because we talked about how technology and the way that we have used it and built our lives around it has disconnected us from people. Yay, we have so many people who are here. I love it. We've talked about that, and it's one of those double-edged swords, right? Because we're like, we're more connected than we've ever been, but we're also more disconnected in real life relationships than we have ever been. And I love that we're getting to sit together because we live in the same place. So we want to tell y'all how we met, because this is like a relatively new friendship. Tell the people.
No, tell the people.
How did we meet?
Okay, so we're in Spokane, Washington, which is about 4.5 hours east of Seattle. So for any of you geographic nerds like me, that's like where we're located right now. And I work in tech. And I've been yearning to have a place to talk with other people and work outside of my house. So I work remotely 100% of the time. So I found a co-working space that was here in Spokane. And I'd been going there for maybe about 7 or 8 months. And one of the community managers there, Lauren, she came up to me probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago and said, I have someone you have to meet. And I was like, okay, great. I'm always up for meeting new people. She goes, she likes Julie Andrews. Was like, okay, great. This was like one conversation that I had with Lauren, this community manager. And I had mentioned, oh, I love Sound of Music and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she finds out that Carrie Ann also likes Sound of Music, Julie Andrews. And she's like, I just know you guys are going to hit it off. And we met. And I mean, I think just like an initial conversation turned into, we learned so much about each other. We realized that we had lived in Seattle at about the same time, and just all these different things that it was just like, wow, this is really cool. And I left the co-working space that day going, I did not get much work done, but I feel so full. And like, that's exactly why I wanted to do this co-working thing. Just for context, like my colleagues are spread across the world. And so I spend a lot of time on Zoom, and it is fairly disconnecting. So that was just like, that was what I remember from our first conversation.
I'm pretty sure we maybe sang High on a Hill, the Lonely Goatherd in the first moment. And why I joined Fellow was because I was similarly working from home, and I was like, wow, I'm never interacting face to face with really anybody, and it was starting to kind of grate on my mental health. And I remember when I first walked in the co-working space and I sat down to work, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm with other people, like in the flesh. And even though everyone was working on their own projects and all of that, there was this feeling of just like, I'm not alone in the world. Look at all these other people who could be working from home and being isolated, but are choosing to be in this space because of a value on varying levels for connection and interaction with other people.
I think what I also realized with working, so when we talk about Fellow, that's our co-working space. So when I think about how I show up there, it is this like, okay, I get to come and just be around other people, like you said, Carrie Ann, but there's also this like moments that I love, the micro moments. Like, you acknowledge that when you walk in the door, somebody looks up and they don't even have to smile, but many of them do. And like, that makes such a difference that I think that in light of tech separating us, being in person helps bring us back together.
Totally.
But I also don't think that all of tech is bad. I mean, my career is built around short links and around marketing, and But at the core of, I think that why I stay in the career that I'm in is that it's about saying, you care about this. I understand what you're going through. Now I'm going to write to help compel you to make a decision.
Yeah.
So I focus on our existing customer base within a software context. But for me, it's about, what do you care about? Oh, you want to learn how to use this tool? Great, let me bring you along.
Yeah.
And so in terms of tech, I think that like there's a way that we can use tech to initiate the connection and then be able to turn that into how we keep that relationship going as time goes on.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it is so interesting how we can utilize tech, like instead of tech basically controlling us, how can we control tech
Right.
to help us in our normal relationships?
Yeah.
And I actually muted my Alexa just in case we were gonna like say the word, but there are moments where like something important, someone will share something important with me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to remember that, but I know that on my own, I might not be able to.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, Alexa, remind me to blah, blah, blah on this day, or remind me to ask so-and-so about their trip or whatever it is. And I know that you said that you utilize tech for that as well.
Yeah. I mean, we have these resources available to us. And I have a separate calendar that I keep in my Google that is just birthdays. So like 3 days ahead of time that somebody's birthday is coming around, I get an email that says like, so-and-so's birthday. And I love to send cards. And so what I will do, if I hadn't already like my memory jogged, that my email, like the tech told me that somebody's birthday's coming up. So then that just triggers for me, okay, great. I want to like go and spend some time with, I know, I prefer to write out a card. It doesn't mean that that's the only way to connect. but that is something where if we're talking about self-care, like I love to just sit down and make something simple and then send it off in the mail. And sometimes I get a response, but that's not what I do it for.
Totally.
And so, it becomes a like just a practice of, oh, I got the notification. Now I can turn that into reinforcing the relationship that I have with that person.
With some type of action.
Yeah. I will say that like I have my siblings live in different parts of the country. And so I don't get the opportunity to spend time with them in person all the time. But just a couple of weeks ago, my dad's birthday was coming up. And so my siblings and I decided to get together on a like collective call. And we all had our screens on or whatever. And we just spent like 30 or 40 minutes. Honestly, we weren't talking about my dad's birthday at all, but that was like the initiation to get into it. And it was so nice to see each other's faces. And so I will say that like tech has helped relationships remain fresh and be relevant. And then when we get together, it is so much sweeter. I had the opportunity to be with them this last weekend. So you know, we talk about tech, and I think that it does help bring people together, but it is easy to feel super isolated. I think, especially when we look at pictures that people are posting or social media kind of just gets sometimes into your head and feels overwhelming, I think, too.
Totally.
So,
and I think it can create that faux sense of connection.
Yes.
Like I remember when I was going through cancer many years ago and I was going through chemo, and I shared a little bit on social media about my journey, but I mean, this is how it is for everyone, right? The social media share is a tiny fraction. And yet when we're viewing other people's content, we think that this is the whole story.
Right.
So I was like, wow, some of my closest people like are not reaching out to me to see how I'm doing. And it was because they thought that they knew how I was doing based on what I was sharing on social media.
Which is like this much of the picture.
Such a tiny amount. And so I've had my own relationship with social media and technology where I'm like, I need to pull back from this because there's so much more going on here. And I don't want people to think that they know what it's like for me to be navigating cancer or any other of like the hard personal life things just because I shared this ounce of stuff on social media. And I think like, as we've talked about that in-person connection, even just from a biological standpoint, is like the sharing of electrons and energy and all of this, like that's not happening as readily when we're on a platform like Zoom or whatever. And it's great. We're all on Zoom. Yay. We're so glad you're here. But we wish we were with you in a room. Like that would be just so different. Such a game changer.
Yeah. I think one thing too is that I find that sometimes when you're in person, you don't need to use words to convey how you're receiving the information or how just like you are spending time with someone else. And I think that that is in a tech world, in this Zoom world, like I have to use words to try and describe how I'm feeling, what we're doing, what we're talking about. And that's exhausting. And I didn't realize how much I was demanding of myself to have to articulate how am I doing? What's going on? And especially when I think that we all navigate different challenges in our lives. And sometimes when a friend, well-meaning, reaches out and goes, "How are you?" My initial reaction is just like, I don't have words
to
describe.
question.
I'm gonna save that and not respond for maybe too long.
Yeah.
And so like I have had some dear friends in my life say, it's okay if you don't have words to describe what it is. But because I'm far away from you, I need to know how I can support you. And so that has looked like phone calls where we're not talking at all. It's just we're kind of like making dinner together or something like that. And so I guess I'll like reiterate, like when you are in person with someone, sometimes it is just like putting a hand or just looking at somebody and sitting with them.
Well, and that's one of the things that in our budding friendship, because this is new for all of you watching, like did we meet like 2 months ago?
Yeah, it's like really new.
It's very new.
This is the first time that I've been to your home.
Yes.
So that's great.
True. We're in my home. But when it comes to having those in-person interactions, like we are reading so much off of nonverbal cues. And after first interacting with you, I mean, we can always tell, right? Like, do I want to be friends with this person or do I not? JoAnne's like making eye contact. She's engaged. Her eyebrows are moving. Like she is with me in the conversation. And there are people walking in and out, but you were just like so clued in.
Thank you.
And then there were these like shared moments of the Sound of Music, which happened to be like right around the time when it was in theaters for the anniversary, and we like bonded over that.
Yeah.
But I just think that there can be so much lost when we don't just like be with someone. And there is a level of discomfort that comes with that.
Yes.
Because we had this mutual person that was like, oh my gosh, you guys need to be friends. And I'm like, we'll see how it goes. Sure. This is stranger to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think when we're talking about connection and building community and friendships, we have to be able to tolerate a bit of discomfort to enter into that space.
Yes.
Because the reality is that it is so much more comfortable to just be on your own. You don't have to deal with like the social anxiety of, oh my gosh, should I have said that? Or what did that mean when that person, none of that is there when you're just living in isolation. And I think so many of us experienced that during COVID. And I know I did. I was like, whoa, when it was time to re-enter society, it made me realize that I actually have a lot of social anxiety that I was getting a little bit of a vacation from by the isolation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's something to work on, you know? But life is so much richer when we're with people.
Absolutely.
It's richer and it's more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
At the same time.
I think it's also an invitation for us to examine ourselves, to say, okay, hey, you might be experiencing social anxiety. That does not mean that you need to spend every waking moment connecting with other people. Like there is room to say, when do I feel rejuvenated? What brings me alive?
Yeah.
And perhaps that's with somebody who you already know.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe reaching out to somebody new feels really daunting.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I think that this idea of like, when we're talking about connection, sometimes it means new friends, which I think you and I have both been like, well, this is fun.
Yeah.
But I think there's also something that goes with, oh, I'm going to reconnect with some things that I really enjoy, or a person that maybe I haven't reached out to lately. And so I think that it's a both and.
Yeah.
There's for sure courage in every scenario.
Totally.
My word this year, I try and choose like a word to center around. I choose it at the beginning of the year. For me this year, my word is courage. And there's a lot of different ways that that shows up as I reflect. But I think that what is like standing out to me is that I sometimes have to be courageous to sit alone.
Yeah.
And I think with regard to like self-reflection, there's opportunity for us to say, I really do need that connection.
Yeah.
Or I need to reconnect with myself.
Mm.
And I think that remove, like when we're talking about tech and whatever else, like sometimes that means the phone goes away. I just finished a weekend where I turned my phone off from Friday to Monday. And like,
off. Everyone not on do not disturb.
like,
Not
he was texting me and she was
Nothing.
like, hey, I'm looking forward to Tuesday. Like nothing. I didn't even know that was coming through. And
Amazing.
so, but for me, like I wouldn't say that I have my phone around that much. That's just my personality. But like that was a relief.
Yeah.
I didn't have to think about the text message to come through that says, how are you? Because right now it's a season of life where like I don't really want to answer that question right now. And so that like I think that that's also just an encouragement for us to think about like, what does connection mean for you? And I think that it could be connection with yourself. It can be connection with your community, with new people, with nature. I'm gonna bring, my dog was just away for a couple of weeks and he's coming home tomorrow. I get to reconnect with him in a new way. So I think that there's a lot of different ways we can think about connection.
Totally. And we touched on this in our tech addiction webinar, because we talked about how for a lot of us, tech is an adult pacifier. We're like, I'm waiting in line, I'm stressed out, I'm overwhelmed. And so I'm just gonna and just pacify ourselves, and like how to increase that window of tolerance. Like I don't really do New Year's resolutions, but one of my goals for this year is to do a better job at tolerating silence. Because I similarly have been going through a lot of things personally, and I've realized in myself, oh my gosh, I can't even sit in silence. Like I'm so uncomfortable that I'm just like, how about an audiobook? How about a Netflix while I'm literally holding my phone walking around my house? So embarrassing. I had a kind of realization moment where I was like, if someone was a fly on the wall in my home and they were watching my phone usage, I would actually be embarrassed. And I don't want to have that feeling. So occasionally I'll just set a timer for, 2 minutes and be like, I am just going to sit here. I'm not going to look at how much time is left. I know that it's only 2 minutes. Like I can do this. And I love that idea of connecting with yourself, because I think it's true that like we cannot give something that we don't have. Right. So how can I connect with someone else if I can't even tolerate being with my own self? And how can I allow someone to know me if I don't even know how to know myself?
And I think that none of this is black and white, and I wish that it was like, oh, I just follow this formula, I do these different things, and like now I'm connected. It takes initiation, but I will say that like when you are saying, hey, two minutes of just lingering, that is a gift that you're giving to yourself. And if you want to take some of that and then hoard it to someone else, awesome. And if you feel like you just need to have that, then keep the gift. Like that's okay.
Totally.
And so I think that's one thing that tech and immediate gratification, everything, there is no lingering. It is every, like I click a button, I don't want to wait. I mean, I'm going to age myself a little bit, and many of you will maybe nod your head. Like we had dial-up to get onto the internet. Like there was this anticipation that came with, oh my gosh, someone's going to get like whatever it is. Maybe I get to chat with somebody, or there's mail, or whatever it is. And there is not a lot of waiting in our society. And so I think that as our friendship is growing, I have felt this like, well, let's just dive right in. Let's keep doing all this stuff and like let's speed it up. When really I think that having this simplicity of we have a connection, we're gonna grow it.
Yeah.
There is this inherent, I think there's a little bit of like wanting to pause and cherish that.
Yeah.
And I think that if we approach connection in that way, then we can gather little nuggets and little like sparks of, oh, that was really fun. And that was really refueling for me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like, and I need another one and another one. Like that I'm satisfied with what that was.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean I'm setting my expectations low.
Right.
I'm just showing up for what this is right now.
To just see what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the lingering and the patience when it comes to relationships, especially if you move or even for people who change jobs and they're like, I was really close to my coworkers in this one place and now I'm in a new place and I'm starting over. Like it does take such a long time.
It does.
And I started gardening a few years ago. All my friends in Spokane gardened, and I was kind of like, what is the big deal about this? Like, why are you so obsessed with flowers?
And why is it in such a short span of time?
Seriously.
We've got longer winters here.
Seriously. And then I finally was like, okay, I'm going to try it, see what the big deal is. And I was starting things from seed. Okay. So I have the little dirt pods. I'm putting the seed in there. My son and I would like speak kindness over them. We're like, this is your new home. You can grow here. You're doing so great. And I was so impatient. Days later, I'm like at the soil. I'm like, is this thing sprouting yet? Like so impatient.
Yeah.
And that is totally how it can be with connection and relationships of like, well, I've lived here for X amount of time. Why don't I have my people? Which is largely because we're not putting in that work and we're expecting the people to come to us. So I'm curious for you because I know that you have moved quite a bit and you're like relatively new to Spokane, right?
I moved here in winter of 2023.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is pretty fresh.
Yeah.
Like what has it looked like for you to create connection, which I want to differentiate that connection and community are a little bit different.
Yeah.
So we have both of those words in the title of the webinar, The Lost Art of Connection, Recovering Community in the Modern Age. Can we talk about like how these two things are different?
Sure.
How can we just be in connection with people without being in community with those same people?
Yeah.
Because maybe you don't want to. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think when I think about connection, it is what we've been describing, which is mutual just recognition.
Yes.
And being able to carry on a conversation that even if it's only 2 minutes,
right,
that was a connection point.
Yeah.
Community, I feel like requires a bit more of a commitment.
Yeah.
And not in like, now we're friends. Like you have to show up to my house and like we're gonna sign up for this. But like when I feel like, gosh, I have been having a hard day and I'm gonna reach out and maybe have to courageously ask for something.
Yeah.
Or I made a commitment to be present. So I'm gonna show up.
Yeah.
Even if I don't want to.
Yeah.
Connection is it can be different from that in that I think that there's just you show up differently.
Right.
I don't know if that's like, how would you differentiate the two?
Yeah, I think connection is really about how do we just recognize shared humanity with people that you may not even ever see again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The college that I went to, their motto was really stressful to me. Okay. It was engaging the culture, changing the world. And I felt like, wow, that is really intense. And I think the rebel in me was like pushing back against that of changing the world is just such a tall order, you know? Sure. And even in the university's magazine, they'd highlight these people who were like, they started a nonprofit that builds wells in Africa. And like, it was very philanthropic. Like, this is how we're changing the world. And I wasn't.
And those are great things.
Yeah, there is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But in my rebellion against it, I remember thinking like, I want to be a person that changes the world by just making one impact on one person's life. And it could be really so powerful. Small. And like, we don't know what's going on with people, right? So like when Actually, here's a weird little connection example from high school. This has kind of like always been a part of, just embedded in the fiber of my being, right? So my water polo team was in Hawaii for a tournament, and we were like walking down the streets of Oahu, and we're just like, just living our life, right? So teenagers. And Carrie Ann, the deep feeler, notices that there is this woman on the sidewalk who had had a box of beads, and she drops them and they spilled all over the place, and everybody's just walking past this woman. And I'm getting emotional thinking about it because it feels like it was yesterday that my friends kept walking, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I go back and I said, can I help you pick up your beads? And she said yes. And I was like helping her pick up the beads, and she's putting them in these tiny bags, and I'm chatting with her. I don't even know what we were talking about. But when we got all the beads picked up and I was going to leave, she said, thank you so much. You don't know how much I needed that. And she had tears in her eyes. And I remember her alluding to feeling in a very delicate, depressed, almost suicidal state. And like nobody saw her, right? And I was able to see her and have this moment of connection with her. I never saw her again, but she gave me 2 beads that I still have in my bead box to this day to remind me that those moments matter.
Yep.
Like, I don't need to see you again. It could be someone at the grocery store that you just give a compliment to. That's one of my favorite things. Like one of my micro moments of connection is, how can I just give a compliment to someone?
Yeah.
Even if it's something that seems like superficial or vain, I'll just be like, oh my gosh, you have really beautiful skin. And so often people will say, oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so self-conscious about my skin or about such and such. And like, they really needed that.
But what you're saying is, I see you.
Yeah.
Like, it's just that I think that, especially in light of our disconnectedness, in the speed that we're doing things, like connection is life.
Yeah.
Like, and so what you said is, hi.
Yeah.
I see you.
Yeah, you're not invisible to me.
And the amount of time that takes to have that exchange is like seconds. And that's not to say that it wasn't important.
Right.
But I think that we have an opportunity to be able to look around us and notice those things.
Yeah.
Saying thank you.
Totally.
Like that feels so silly.
I know.
But like,
but
it
it's
makes
missing
a difference.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
Yeah.
And I think that we probably all hear like recommendations of like, oh, well, you kind of know really how someone is, how they treat a waitress or a waiter or whatever. But it's not whatever. It is this like recognition of like, you are doing a great job, or you're maybe not doing a great job, but like, I can still acknowledge the effort.
Well, and the value of someone's humanity is not tied to performance.
Not at all.
So I feel like connection is just these small moments of saying, you matter.
Yep.
And then when we talk about community, we're like, these are the people that we're living life with.
And I want to bring those people around.
Yeah.
And so you asked a question about, okay, I moved to Spokane. What does that look like to bring about a sense of community?
Yeah.
And it started with my neighborhood. And it was actually because I was the recipient of someone reaching out.
I love that.
So I moved in February. It was like a snowy-ish sort of day. Moving truck pulls up. I'm like schlepping things in, and within an hour of me showing up at this rental place that I had, somebody walks over and introduces themselves. And I was like, okay, I had just moved from a place where people were not really communicating much with each other.
Really different.
Very different. And I was like, well, that was refreshing.
Yeah.
And now I know one person in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I kid you not. Within the day, I had met every single one of my neighbors.
Wow.
Because they were out and about.
Yeah.
It was a winter day.
Yeah.
But what it did is it left a mark for me of, that was really easy for them to notice that something was different. There was someone new, and they introduced themselves.
Yeah.
And so I said to myself, okay, I want to know every neighbor who is in my, like on my street.
Yeah.
And so a couple of months later, somebody moved in across the street, kitty corner, and their moving truck pulled up. I walked over and said, "Hi, I'm JoAnne. I'm so excited that you're living here in this neighborhood, and I'd love to continue to get to know you." And now we're 3 years later, and now I'm going to get emotional because they are probably my closest friends in Spokane.
I love that.
And they have since had a child, and they're actually moving away.
Oh,
And
no.
so we have built this beautiful friendship because it has just been one of mutual consistency and showing up for one another.
Yeah.
They've gone through things in their life. I've gone through things in my life, and the amount of times that I have felt comfortable to be able to go over and just talk.
Yeah.
Or just play a game or be together is really palpable. And so I would say that, like, knowing my neighbors or knowing their names and starting to get to know them. I'm not besties with every single one of my neighbors. But I have since moved to a different neighborhood. And when I moved in, I made a postcard. It said, "Hi, I'm JoAnne. It's me. I listed like 3 things that I enjoy, and then I put a picture of my dog. His name is Leo, and I said, these are the things he enjoys. We look forward to getting to know you." And so I went around and like knocked on doors, and some people were there and others weren't, and I just left the postcard.
Yeah.
And it has just been a great conversation starter.
Yeah.
And I walk the dog a lot, and so I've met those people.
Yeah.
So I would say to like neighbors. And then another thing is that I started just taking inventory of what are the things that I like to do.
Yeah.
I love hosting at my house. I really enjoy cooking. And in years past and in other locations, I've always had like a dinner party once a month. And I decided, you know what? I don't know a lot of people, but I can ask them if they'd be open to coming to dinner.
Yeah.
And I've now been hosting a monthly dinner party with a bunch of girls for 2.5 years.
Amazing.
And so I would say that like one of the joys of my life is to be able to leave the room, come back in, and see that my friends are now friends.
Yes.
And I don't need to be the glue anymore.
I love that.
So that has also then turned into, hey, we're doing this thing. Who wants to go? And I just include the people of that group and their friends or their families or whatever.
Yeah.
Before you know it, like I'm seeing people at the grocery store and like walking around town and whatever else. And like the city of Spokane is like 230,000 people. Like
it feels like a small town.
It's not enormous, but I would say 1 out of every 3 outings, I see somebody.
Me too.
And like that's a really cool thing.
Okay, so I want to pause there because obviously you and I are very outgoing, right? Yes. And I recognize that not every single person on this call is going to be outgoing. You might be listening to this and be like, that sounds like my literal nightmare. But maybe you feel lonely. So how do we bridge that gap? And we were kind of brainstorming about some of these smaller moments of how do we offer connection. And one of the things that we talked about was efficiency versus lingering. And so we're going to recommend that you sometimes be a little bit inefficient. And here's an example of like some teeny tiny way that you can do this. So this morning we like have this webinar happening and I hop on Teams and immediately I start typing out, "Rachel, here are the links for the webinar." My instinct was just to go straight to efficiency, but I was like, okay, girl, chill. We're talking about the art of connection. So I deleted and I said, "Hey everybody, happy webinar day. How's it going?" Like that tiny little, like, let's not just dive straight into the meat. Let's recognize that we're people and those tiny things that maybe for you, the art of connection looks like instead of diving straight for efficiency, you say, "How was your weekend?" in an email. And then you don't even have to do the face-to-face thing if you're not ready for it yet. And like, just let someone respond and see. And if they say it was good, and maybe how was your weekend is actually a bad question.
There's a lot of other questions we
There's
can
way
ask.
better questions. Yes. Because it could just be like, it was good. How was yours? Or what did you do this weekend? Or whatever.
What I like to do is ask like something that's a little different. And people are like, wait, no one's asked me that recently. So this morning I hosted a very early morning meeting because like I said, my colleagues are all over the world. So I guess we're talking a little bit about connection at work too. Because that can happen at work as well as in our personal lives. And I'm not saying that you need to use this question, but this is what I used this morning. What was the best bite that you have had recently? So, I mean, hopefully we are all eating something, you know.
Yeah.
I very much enjoy food.
Yeah.
And I was delighted by a cinnamon swirl bread toast.
Sounds amazing.
That I had yesterday.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I mean, it wasn't like my life changed, but like it was different. And it still sticks out a day later.
Yeah.
And then my colleagues then each, like as we opened this meeting, like they each shared something that also gave me a better idea of who they are.
Yeah.
And so, you know, one person shared, I was with my family this weekend and we did X, Y, Z. And I was like, didn't ask that question, but got that information.
Yeah. Which I think with that, the reminder for us, I think, is that people want to be known.
Yes.
So when we dive straight into the efficiency and the let's just get down to business, we're missing out on this huge opportunity that like that person that shared, I was with my family this weekend, they shared that because they want to be known.
Yes.
And your reaction could be two different ways. It could be, I know when you said I didn't ask that, you weren't like, don't tell me that.
Oh no,
like it wasn't that at all. But like some people would have that reaction of like, well, that's not the question to answer the question.
Yeah.
Instead of being able to see, I just got a window into this person's life that I would not have had otherwise.
Right.
Like what a gift to be able to have that.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that.
And another one mentioned, I went to this restaurant. They have this one recipe that I really enjoy. Well, I know that person is about to move from their location, and so they're cherishing this restaurant for the last time, and so that allows me to say, oh, he's sharing this in a group setting. I can follow up later and say, how are things going and whatever, because we've opened up that connection.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Okay, talk to me more about like when you say lingering and also like feeling maybe a little overwhelmed with the idea of initiating connection. Like tell me a little bit more about how you've thought about what that can look like and not have it feel overwhelming.
I know. How do you make it not feel overwhelming? That's a great question. I don't know if I have a super clear answer to that, to be honest. I think it's just these smaller moments that include saying hello to people and making,
or maybe like even smile. Maybe just smiling.
It could be just a smile.
Maybe that's where it starts.
It could be a smile because I mean, I've been in some situations where I'm walking down the street and it's so obvious that whoever's coming towards me has zero interest in interacting, that they'll literally cross to the other side of the street. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot. That's intense, but just like a smile, how's it going? Or I was on a walk, I'm dog sitting right now, and was on a walk with my little furry pup and saw this man that was working on his motorhome, and I've seen him 2 times now. So the first time I was just, Mabel was off leash and I was like, oh, she's really friendly, don't worry about it, But then the next time he was at his motorhome again, I said, oh, are you getting ready to go on a trip? So curiosity, I think, is a big thing.
Yeah.
And you could call it being nosy. Like, this guy he doesn't need to tell me what he's doing or where he's traveling, but I had the question in my mind, right? And so I was like, this is a bridge. This is an opportunity to connect with this neighbor. I asked what his name was. He's preparing to sell the motorhome, and it just opened a conversation. And so now when I see him again, I can say, hey, Tom, did you end up selling your motorhome or whatever it is?
Yeah.
And I think allowing that curiosity to really
like that,
be present is great, because I think a lot of us do have those moments of curiosity, but we tell ourselves, well, it's none of my business.
Well,
and that keeps us isolated.
And if that is the case,
he can
let's
be
say
like,
that Tom didn't want to share.
Yeah.
He then chooses
He doesn't have
to respond in a particular
Yeah,
way.
Totally.
And that also, I think, goes back to what you were talking about with feelings maybe a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
With being in person.
Yeah.
Or initiating connection.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You might get a weird response or something that maybe didn't feel like what you were looking for.
Yeah.
And that happens too.
It does.
Because also, like, welcome to life. Like, the connect didn't happen.
Yeah.
And that is something that you do risk in trying to engage in connection.
Yeah.
And pursuing some way of feeling less isolated.
Yeah.
And so I think that
Yeah,
that's,
true.
you know, if we're going to be frank, like, the connection doesn't always happen.
No, it absolutely doesn't. I think another thing that's coming to mind for me right now is a lot of, I don't know about all of you, but sometimes I just have a moment where like someone just randomly pops into my head. I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about that person that I haven't thought of in a while.
Yeah.
And what most people are going to do, and I've done this also, is we just like let that thought cloud float by and then it's gone. We don't do anything about it. But one of the ways that we can increase connection is just text that person.
I like that.
Just like, oh, hey, you just came into my mind and I was thinking about XYZ moment we had together.
Yep.
Like, how are you? Or would love to do a phone date or whatever. And just those small moments. Like for me, one of these small moments I was the recipient of last week. My son had the flu, but I was also still working. So he was at home and I'm like in my nook taking coaching calls, doing all this stuff. And my housemate downstairs texted me and she did clap emojis and she was like, working mom, I see you. And I have thought about that text like 10 times since then, because I felt like, wow, she could have just gone on her merry way and just noticed like, oh, I'm working and I'm momming and I'm doing all the things, but she chose to call that out. And I felt like very seen. And it made me sit up a little taller because I was like, yeah, I am out here. I'm doing it, you know, like I'm navigating a lot right now and I'm doing that. And so that's one of those ways that we can use tech as a bridge, because a lot of us probably have people that we've met that are from all over the place and that we might think of randomly. They might think of you randomly. If we allow ourselves to be that first domino that falls of like, I'm just going to send the text, even though I haven't seen this person in 3 years or whatever it is, then we're more likely to get that back from them. Because then they'll be like, oh, I can text this person I haven't seen in a while. And how beautiful is that?
Yes.
Like, it's amazing. Someone is saying in the chat that, especially after COVID, people are so sensitive. You can't joke around anymore. So that makes people hibernate. That is so true. There is a different art form of learning to be unoffendable. And I don't even know if that's a real word, but when we are choosing to enter into connection and attempt to build friendship and community, we have to just say, I don't have to always be in agreement with people.
Right.
How can I assume the best of intent with whatever somebody is saying to me? And how can I be kind? And we want to be conscientious in the way that we communicate, but without walking on eggshells.
Right.
Right. Because it is a very complicated world we're living in right now.
It is true. And I think that it allows us to, I mean, I don't think that either one of us are saying like, dive in deep, start asking hard questions. Like, I think that is an arena for community. Yeah. Like there are spaces to go deep with people as they feel comfortable, as you feel comfortable. Connection, I think that we are alluding to acknowledgement. Yeah. And maybe, and you all know your environments better than we do. And I mean, I think about it as I even like just think about something as like what feels very minimal in terms of I go to different coffee shops in town and how I engage with the baristas looks different at each one of those places because there's just a different vibe. Yeah. There's just a different way that people are showing up. Yeah. And so I think that that's an invitation to us too, to say, okay, like read the room. Yeah. Am I gonna crack a joke? Does that make sense? Like, do I come in like exuberant when really like this is more of a mellow space? Yeah. And I'm not saying like don't be who you are, but I think that there's an opportunity for us to like read the room. You see somebody who maybe is struggling. Yeah. Or visibly not having a great day. to be able to be like, what made you smile today is probably not the question to ask.
Totally.
But to smile, and sometimes like I won't even my friends are lovely and they tell me that I have a volume that's a little off the charts and a megawatt smile that sometimes can be intimidating. So like how do I show up in that environment?
Yeah.
I can smile.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So I think that there's some artistry to that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the title of this
webinar
is.
It is an art, you know?
And so there's some practicing too with that. And I wonder too if that makes it. So I'll tell a story. I was as I've just over the years like trying. Little Mabel is down here. The dog that Carrie Ann is babysitting is really wanting pets. So that's why like I'm like going like this. Anyway, I was in a season of life where I was really in need of feedback. And so some wise people in my life said, why don't you reach out to the people who are in your sphere and say, how do I show up for you? How do I show up to you? And I think that what I learned with that is that there is opportunity for growth with it. And when you have people who you trust, you can hear that feedback better. And so when we talk about connection, that can be with people that we don't really have history with. Or who don't know that this is where I'm coming from. Or in light of remote work, feeling starved for connection. Okay, well, they may have just spent their entire shift interacting with people day in and day out. Like that might not be the moment of connection. But there can be a like respect and acknowledgement. So
I love that. I think that inviting people in is one of the huge ways that we can build connection, and that often can lead to community. And I started doing pottery a couple years ago, as I've shared with you, and I was really bad at it in the beginning, like so bad that I almost was in tears as a 36-year-old woman. I was like, oh my gosh, inner child is getting triggered right now, but just incompetency. And I stuck with it. So I've been doing it for years, but there were some parts of it, the fundamentals that I was not nailing. And with pottery, if you don't like perfectly center your clay, the rest of your piece is just not going to go well. You're not going to pull even walls. Like there's a lot of things that are really frustrating about it. And I'm at a co-op, a pottery co-op, and I was ready to cancel my membership because I was like, I'm just so frustrated. Like I'm not making the things that I want to make because I don't have the basics down. And so I reached out to one of the gals who teaches a class and I said, hey, could I pay you to give me a private lesson so that I could just nail some of this basic stuff? And she was like, don't pay me, but yeah, let's totally do it. Well, we got together at the studio. She helped me with some stuff. We really connected and had a great interaction together. And then she has now become one of my close friends. That there's this whole crew of people that are from one of her classes that we've played pickleball together. We've gone paddleboarding. We have clay dates where we all get together and like try and throw the same sort of piece. And that was all because I saw that she has expertise in this area that I do not have, but I want. So instead of me just Googling and watching YouTube videos and doing all the things, if you know someone that is nailing something that you want to learn about, ask them. Like invite them into the process.
One thing that I think that is particularly poignant as you share in that story is that the relationships built as you were centering around an activity. And so there isn't always this like desire or need to have like, okay, we're going again, we're not going deep or whatever. Like the relationship happens as you're pursuing something that you both are genuinely interested in. And I think that in light of what we were talking about for, you know, how much do you initiate? What about an extrovert versus an introvert approach? Like a shared activity is something that just naturally brings about connection. And there's this great weekly newspaper here in town called The Inlander. And there are all these different activities that are going on in Spokane and at any given time. And one that stuck out to me was called the Silent Book Reading Club. And it's hosted at a coffee shop in the evening. And you just bring your book and everyone else brings their book.
Amazing.
And you just sit around and read your book. but like you're with other people.
Yeah.
Tell me that's not connection.
Totally. Those like alone together moments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that there's ways that we can seek out those kinds of things. And if you are the initiating type, to think about how we bring people together around activities that don't necessarily mean that you need to bare your soul.
Right.
I had a crafternoon the other day.
Yeah.
And so I just had a a table full of craft items. Yeah. And we all made Valentines. It was really fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's ways to do that too. Something that I like to do, and I have gotten mixed reviews in how it's received.
Okay.
But I tend to ask people who I'm interacting with what their name is. And so like I'm at a coffee shop and I ask their name. Sometimes their response is, well, what's your name? Because it's like, well, how am I supposed to respond to this? And it's like, okay, fine.
Because it feels personal.
Right. But then we both know one another's name and we're talking about building community and continued connection. There's consistency in that.
Yeah.
I come back into the coffee cup and there is sometimes this like, I know that we talked about this, but what's your name? And it's another like connector, even if we don't remember.
Right.
So I don't think that like this means that we need to have memories like elephants or having become like just superpower, connectors. We just keep showing up.
Well, and people think they do. A lot of people, like we live in such a perfectionistic society in so many different ways, but people will be so afraid to ask because they think it's going to make them look dumb.
Yeah.
And for me, as a person who does not have a common name, I always tell people when I meet them, if you need to ask me again what my name is, please do, because it's hard to remember.
Yeah.
And then I'm automatically giving them that permission slip to ask me again because like they're probably going to forget, and that's okay. And I forget too, but I would rather risk looking like an idiot that didn't remember someone's name, but I'm not an idiot, I'm just a human, right? And then to say, hey, okay, remind me of your name. I know it's something with an S or whatever it is, and it breaks the ice, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I couldn't remember yours either,
Yep.
I am looking at our time, and I know we could talk about connection forever, but we have 5 micro moments of connection. Will you just like give us the bullet points real quick on those?
Yeah.
I know we've talked about
we've talked about a couple of them. I mean,
Just
I think that number one, like be curious.
Yeah.
That's something that you brought up. And it's just this, how can we remain open-eyed with that?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about tech. I would say one for me is like, put your phone down.
Totally.
I'm not saying turn it off. Just when you are with other people, put it down.
No better way to be present.
Another thing is that the reason why connections happen is because you are you. You make a connection with somebody else because you have a similar interest or you're sharing this moment. So be you. Like that sounds so like generic, but like go pursue the things that you like because those are the things that fuel you. So I'd say like that, be you. For me, asking for names, like is the initiator of like how to connect.
Right. Because there is a threshold at which you're like, if I've interacted with you for X amount of times and I don't know your name, now it's weird that I don't know your name. That I never even asked in the first place.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then I would say start small.
Yeah.
Connections are moments.
Yeah.
So that can be with a friend. That can be with a new person.
Yeah.
It can also be saying thank you.
Yeah. It can be as small as eye contact and a smile.
Yes.
That's it. Just like you're a human, I see you.
And that is not insignificant.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, I love that. JoAnne, thank you so much
for
being willing to just have this conversation. And for all of you listening, our desire is that you have walked away from this with at least one thing that you can put into practice to start with connection. How do we recover this lost art? It's not extinct. it's just lost. It can be found again. And this recording will be available for you in a week, as well as the transcript and the certificate of attendance and all of that. If anyone has questions and you want to drop them in the Q&A, we will do a little recording afterwards that will go out with all of the resources and connection stuff, because we know that there might be questions about this. You might have a specific kind of case study where you're like, this is my situation, how do I build connection? And we might have some ideas. So thank you so much for being here. Mark your calendars for the end of March, when we're going to talk about nutrition and holistic wellness as a way to just lay the foundation for good things in your life. But thank you for being here. We will see you soon. Bye, everyone.